let's get started with some Barney Kessel Chord Melody. This stuff is really cool. I've always enjoyed it. I haven't really broken it down until we've had all this time to spend with some extra practice. So I've taken a few of his chord melody intros and I've started working on them. This was the first one I finished, as well as a Foggy Day, and I have one from the Two Swing or Not to Swing album called Embraceable You, and then looking at a couple others to do, as well as some Johnny Smith chord voicings for some more spread voicings on the guitar. But what I thought I'd do is this kind of melody is broken into two parts. So I think I'm going to play through the first part, and then we'll just break that down, and then I'll play through the second part, which is mainly the same until the very end. He does a few other things, some descending 2/5s, and really we'll just talk about all the chords that are going on, because this is a great way to learn a bunch of chords and how they're used in real context, instead of just practicing chord scales up and down the neck, which is no fun. So here, I'll play this and then we'll get started. Then it would start into the next section. So, kind of breaking down this little intro, he plays a note, 7th fret, and then an E double stop. I'm thinking of my big E chord right here. And then we've got this, what seemingly, to me, looks like an A13, an A7 13. But we got to talk about where it leads. The next chord is a B minor major chord. So what I found in doing a couple of these transcriptions and just using my ear, really what this is an E flat altered chord. And if what's cool about it is, if you put the B flat in the bass, it leads right up to the B. So if we take these notes and lead it up to this B minor major chord, it fits really nicely. So kind of the first thing I've thought about in doing this is that this type of chord, this E flat altered or B flat with or B flat diminished, leads up to a major minor. So that's the first thing I kind of took away from it. For this song, we go to just a normal B minor, B minor 7, and then this passage is cool. It is an E minor triad. We've got G, B, D, or minor 7, and then we move up the D to the E. And what's cool about it, if we do a 2 minor, we've got A7 right there. Now, I've always thought about this. Here's my A7 chord. Here's my C sharp, that's the 3rd. If I build a half diminished chord off the top of it, I get an A9. It's pretty simple. I don't try to overcomplicate things. So I'm thinking E minor, A7. It's just a 2, then a 5. And now he plays this sus chord. And you can analyze this a couple ways. I still think of it as somewhere in that A7 E minor realm. You've got this E minor, 7, G, B, and D, right, on top of it. So all the notes in E minor except for the actual E and then an A in the bass. So still thinking in that A, E minor land. So we've got, and that resolves to a D6. So easiest way for me to think of D6 is it's just the relative minor. So that would be B minor, right? But just put a D in the bass. So you've got that B minor, 3-note grouping up here of F sharp, B and D, and then you got a D in the bass. So to kind of recap, we've got there's that sus sounding chord, then D. Now our next little grouping is so what that is just playing down like blues, a blues scale really. You can do the in fourths. So we've got D and A on the 10th fret here, and then E and B on the 9th frets of the 3rd and 4th string, and we're just moving this shape down. So we've got D, C, A, G. If you want, you can think in like a chord scale. That's 1, flat 7, 5, 4. So nothing too fancy there. If you listen to the recording, he actually puts in the 5th string like that. That's a little overkill for me. I like the 4-note grouping. I use it a little more. So I've got that. And then we come down to the D7 altered chord everyone knows from Purple Haze. And that resolves right into this A kind of suspended chord or E minor, whatever you want to think of it, back to that D6. So kind of a neat little turnaround. Now one thing to note real quick, from this D to this A, I do use my thumb to grab that low A bass note. I think it's easier than using your 3rd finger and your 4th finger to get it like that. So that just might help you when you're trying to learn this and play it and get the consistency of it down. So you've got then we do kind of a pickup note, kind of setting up a B chord in order to go into this E. So this is a really awesome lick. I've definitely used this a lot in my playing. We're strumming an E9 chord, all right, just at the 7th fret, and then we're playing up a B minor chord. And this lick, this is a really special lick for me. This is one of the first kind of jazzy licks I heard. And what it is half step slide into the B minor. So we're playing that, what is that? B flat and D flat up to B and D. And then playing up to the D and F sharp double stop. So it's really just thinking out of this B minor chord shape we all know. And then sliding up to, in my mind, an F sharp minor, or another extension of the B. So that's the F sharp and A. And then sliding up to the C sharp and E. So that's A, drop down a half step, drop down another half step, and you're at D and B. Again, B minor, E minor world, or E7 world. So a thing that I kind of had to compartmentalize when learning this stuff and doing the other Western swing and jazz stuff before, all of these notes and double stops serve multiple functions. And it's really hard to think of them all individually. You kind of have to lump them together. So when I think B minor, I think of a couple of things, or when I better should say, when I think E7, I think of a couple of different things. I think of E7 or E9 as normal, but I also think of B minor, because if you look at it, it's literally an E7 chord, but with an added 9 at F sharp. So I think of that. The next thing I think is playing off of the B minor. So what can work really, really well, so if we take a B minor and go up to the 5th. So let's just go, that's an F sharp. We can play an F sharp minor chord off of the B minor, off of the E, and it all works really well. So if this is my E9, B minor, F sharp minor. So this F sharp minor, if we look at it, it's the 5th of B, the 9 of E. The A, that's the flat 7 of B, the 4 of E. The C sharp, that's the 2 of B, the 6 of E. So it's all extensions, so it sounds really nice. You're playing on the top notes of it. So that's why that works so well over E. And then we're just going up here and playing even more, chromatically down. Again, that C sharp and E, I'm still thinking of F sharp minor, it's the 5th of B, B minor is the 5th of E, it all works together. And you're coming down chromatically. So, that's what's going on in that lick. Really cool lick to use over 5 chords or dominant 7 chords. Lots of things you can do with it. So hopefully that makes sense. You're not too confused about it. Just remember, dominant 7 chord, think of the 5th, so E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B. If you want to add more to it, think of the 5th of the 5th, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp. And all of that's going to work really, really well. Side note, that kind of 5th sound over the B minor is what Wes Montgomery used a lot. And that's kind of a more hard bop, later bebop thing that guys would do. But that's very evident in Kessel's playing quite a bit. So we've got this E9 thing. Then we come back down. So again, it's more of that E minor, A7 land. Now instead of resolving to the D6 here, we actually resolve to a C sharp 11, or C sharp minor 11, better said. So you can think of them just totally changing keys here. That works. I think that's a little bit easier to say what I'm going to say next. Or you could think of that A7 or E minor to A is going to the C sharp, which is the major 7 of D. I think they're just changing keys. So we've got C sharp minor, and then we walk it down to a C7 flat 5. You could also think of it as the tritone substitution for F sharp. So to kind of unpack that, we've got C sharp minor normally, right? And then it would be F sharp 7, a 2, 5, 2, 1, which would be B. But instead, we're subbing this F sharp chord with the C chord. How do you do that? Not too hard. Just take the tritone. You could think of going 1, 2, 3, 4, the flat 5. Instead of going to the 5, go to the flat 5, that's your tritone. And you have a C. So we've got C sharp minor, and then dropping down, C7 flat 5. Another thing you could think, it's just a chromatic walk down, and it just voice leads really nicely. Again, you don't have to overthink this stuff too much. And then that resolves down to a B. So if I was practicing this, I would take away, okay, we could either go C sharp minor, F sharp 7, B, a really straightforward 2, 5, 1. Or C sharp minor, C7, B, with that tritone sub in there. And that works great. So that B is going to lead us now to an E. But what I want to do for those of you joining, I see quite a bit more people. Awesome. I'm going to play up to that real quick, just to kind of recount where we are. And I'll talk through it a little bit. So we've got, so that's that 7 that's leading to the 1. And then you're Here comes the E minor A7 land, resolving to the D. Here comes the blues. B minor into E. A7, E minor land. Here comes the C sharp minor, and the C, and the B. Alright, so that's where we're at now. We've got this cool E7 chord with a 13, a 13, and a flat 9. So again, you're thinking of this is your normal E9 kind of blues chord that we all know and love so much. Now we're going to remove the E from it and just play up the top of it. So normally, if that's our E7 chord, let's add our pinky to the 9th fret and we have E13. But he does this thing where he removes the 9 and we play a flat 9, that F. So we have an E13 with a flat 9 in it. And then we drop it down to a flat 13 and then down to a B. So what happens is we have, E13, E flat 13, and now a diminished chord. Which brings us kind of to the next learning point. This diminished chord is now going to resolve into an F sharp minor flat 5. The way I think of this, again, not trying to overcomplicate or overthink things, this chord, if you look at all the notes, it's an F diminished because diminished chords are cyclical. They move in thirds. So if we have an F on the 2nd string, and we're going to this F sharp minor chord here on the 9th fret, we've got an F diminished chord on the 8th fret. So it's just a half step resolution if we voice it differently. So this makes a lot of sense to go to that, because really it's just going F diminished, F sharp minor with the flat 5. Hopefully that makes sense. So we've got or, it still resolves the same way. So we've got and what's going on here? We have this F sharp minor, 2 minor, going to the 5. And so instead of playing just a normal B chord, we play a B suspended. So our suspended note is the E, and then we add in that G sharp, which is 13. So it's a B13 sus4. I guess that's how you say it. I don't know. So that's that. And then we drop it down to a 7, or a normal B7 with the 3rd, and then move this up to the 7, the A. So it's kind of a cool movement. And then we do the same thing, E minor to A. So cool 2 little descending 2 5s. Now I'm going to back up and play from the E7 just so y'all can all hear all of that. So we've got flows really nicely. So this A7, again, we're just going down, circle of fifths resolving. You've now come to a D. This is a really cool thing he does. He plays so to break that down, we're just playing a normal D7 chord. Then we go up and play a B minor. Again, earlier in this video I said you have to kind of think of these chords as kind of in groups. You don't have to think of them as individual notes per se. So in my mind, I think we have a D chord, right? And we're adding a B just for some color. The next thing I think is we're coming down here to an F sharp major chord, which is like, what does that have to do with the D chord? Well, you got to see what's happening. We're playing chromatically. And so I'm assuming he's just taking it and moving these things down chromatically like that. I don't know too much of the theory behind it, but it makes sense to my ear. D, F sharp, D7. So that could be a cool thing you could do over a dominant 7 chord. And just flattens across the 5th fret here. So that's a cool D7 with a 9 and a 4 in it. And then we do this sus back to normal D7. So that whole thing is like, sorry. And that resolves to G. So we have now a C sharp to an F sharp. So just another 2-5 for a key change. So G, and I'm just going F sharp, G, B, D. There's our C sharp 7 altered, F sharp 7, and then I'm spacing out here. Yes, B minor. There we go. That resolves to a B minor. So he does this little thing where he plays the normal B minor chord we all know, then adds the 9 to it by keeping the rest of the chord the same. And then he kind of breaks just into single notes. We have kind of a D sharp there, emphasizing a B7 possibly, because we're going to go to an E minor now. So we've got and then so what's happening there is that E that we're landing on. He doesn't play a chord in the song, but you know, if you want, you can throw an E minor or an E7 down. We move up this A7 chord. So this is a nice chord. It's a 7, a 9, and a 3. And then if you want, your pinky can play the A. So we just move up. That's the 3rd, that's the 4th, flat 5, 5, and then the 6, flat 7. And we land right there on the A7, flat 9 with an added 13. And that would resolve us back into B minor. So let me play that whole last little bit for you. It's a lot of chords. So we've got G, B minor, here comes the A, here comes it again. This is all the same as we just did. C sharp minor, tritone. So that's where we're going to pick it back up. Instead of playing C sharp to F sharp, we take it another 2-5 up. So we're coming up to this G sharp minor 11. Again, it's you've got your G sharp, your D sharp, and your F sharp. So that's your 1, 5, and flat 7. then your C sharp is the 11, and then that G sharp 2 minor resolves to the 5, so there's our C sharp 7. So you could think of C sharp like this, but he voices it with the flat 7 in the top, and then we resolve to F sharp 7 flat 5, and then we resolve to a B7 flat 9. So F sharp, we've got F sharp, C, E, and A, and then we bring this up to a B. We have a D sharp there, a C, and an F sharp. So all the notes in that B7 flat 9 chord. Then we resolve it down to an E minor 11. So this is another lick I like to talk about. We have an E minor, and we're in this territory of E minor A7. So play this, and then bring up a half step double stop. So it's resolving into, if you want to think this G chord here. And you could think that's like a G9. Again, it's still kind of in the E minor land though. Now that is an E minor 9. We've got G, B, D. Those are the 3 notes in E minor. And then the F sharp's the 9. Remove the D. There's a C sharp, so that's more of an A sound. So over the E, then over the A. Oops. And that resolves to a D. And this outro I'm going to play real quick for you. It's so what's happening here is we're playing just up the chord scale. D, E minor, F sharp minor, G, A, and we go to the flat 7, which is the C, and we're putting open A's between all of that, so it's, and then we just come back down, D, flat 7, C, 5, 4, flat 3, there's your F, flat 2, that's your E flat, 1, and right there that's a D with an added B and an E, so you get the 13-9 sound. So that is Barney Kessel's Love Is Here to Stay, with all of those cool chords, but I think it's fair to say that most of those chords are not too complicated, pretty standard, standard chords and shapes. The special thing I think that is to his playing, obviously, is, I mean, it's very elegant and beautiful, but he really uses these chords and stretches like his use for them. I mean, I think the coolest thing, I think, in this song, outside of that lick, is how you would take these 7th chords. So normally, like, this is your B chord, here's your B7. I love the fact that he adds the suspended 4 and the 13 to it, right? And then resolves it into a B7. That stuff is really cool to me. And then just takes that down. So if you're going to take this into your own playing, what I would recommend is take all of these big cowboy chords, if you come from kind of the background that I do of learning these open chords and moving them around on the guitar, and see what you can do. Let's give an example real quick. If this is a G chord, if I want to play just all the extensions in a major chord that are fairly normal extensions. The first one I think of is G, a G9. So add your A note. So get that comfy, just switch between the two. The next thing I think about is that suspended 4. That one's pretty easy. You've got your C there, just put your pinky down. The next thing I think about is a G6. The 6 of G is E. The next thing I would do is your major 7. A little more difficult because you're moving all your fingers. And And then you can start building off of that. You might affect the lower notes. So take this G, make it a major 7, drop it an octave. Like that. If you wanted a 6, there's your 6. If you wanted a 9, there's your 9. If you wanted a flat 7, there's your flat 7. So that's kind of how I went around doing this. And I still do it. It's an ongoing process. And so you take that through your main shape. So I would take that to G here. I would take it to G here. And I would take it to G here. And I would do the same thing with 7th chords and minor chords. So let's do a 7th chord real quick. Let's do a C7. So if that's your normal C7 with the 9 in it, if I want to add, what do I want to do first? 13. There's my A. That's the 13 of C, so I would add that. If I wanted to add a flat 9, I would drop that. So now I've got C7 flat 9, or if I wanted to, I could do a C7 flat 9 with a 13, like that. If I wanted to do a flat 13 with a normal 9, make my C7 chord again, and then drop the flat 13 in there. If I wanted to do a flat 13 and a flat 9, voila, that would be that. If I want to do a C7 flat 5, if this is my C7, my 5's on the first string, this G, I would drop it a half step. And I would have my flat 5. If I wanted to do a flat 5, flat 9, there's my C7, C7 flat 5, take the 9 off, C7 flat 5, flat 9, or the other way around, however you would say it. So it's all right there. It's just a matter of slowly getting your fingers to work with you. So I would take that and apply it to all the big chords you know that are fairly easy, that you play out of the most, because that's where all this stuff kind of lies under your fingers. I hope you enjoyed that. I will be doing this, I think, for the next few Mondays while we're all at home. 4 p.m. is a good time. The next one I'm going to do is a Foggy Day. So if you haven't heard that tune, go check it out. It's on Barney Kessel Plays Standards. I believe that's the name of the album. Let me double check that real quick. Yes, Kessel Plays Standards. That's the one. So go check that out. There's a lot of good stuff on it. And I will be back. If you want to private message me for any questions or want to set up a private lesson, 30, 45, 60, 90 minutes, however long you want, I'm around. I'd love to teach you and show you some stuff and hopefully get your playing better. That's the goal for all of this, to keep playing and keep learning. So I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks, guys and girls.